hats off to Brooklyn for putting together like the worst group of players ever, personality wise. I'm sure they're great dudes off the court.
Welcome to episode 33 of the David Binkowski podcast. Today, my guest is Pat Benson Jr. You can find him on Twitter at Pat_Benson_Jr. JR. He's the Atlanta Hawks and NBA sneakers reporter for FanNation, which is a Sports Illustrated channel. He's also the author of Kobe Bryant's Sneaker History from 1996 to 2020. Pat, welcome into the podcast.
Cool to finally get to speak with you and, actually hear your voice instead of just reading, our communications. So.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you're not following Pat, he is a great follow, not just for NBA content, but his takes and stuff are really good. So make sure you follow him there as well. Pat, we're going to jump right in and we're going to look at each conference, each NBA conference, Eastern and Western, and we're going to go through what Vegas is predicting as the win totals. And so we're going to pick, is it accurate, over, under? I'd like to talk about each team briefly as well, just because there's been so much, health plays such a huge factor in so many of these numbers. So we're going to make some assumptions here that people will be healthy or available or what have you, but there are some glaring ones that I think they're going to contribute to whether we go over or under. So let's start in the East. We're going to start with the Atlantic Division. And the team that won it last year, the Boston Celtics, reloaded somewhat, right? They got Brogdon. I'm not going to count injured players here, but they got Brogdon, which is a great addition. Grant Williams had a great game in the playoffs where they really challenged him to shoot threes, and he did. Rob Will, they're saying, is going to be out until December, possibly January. Yeah. So for me, they have big time questions at the center position just for that reason alone. The Celtics again finished not with the best record overall. That was the Heat in the East, but what they did bring was essentially an amazing run. Once they kind of got their act together, they made an amazing run in the second half of the season, and obviously went to the finals. So they've got a lot going for them. Whether or not they can reach that number or not, I don't know. Vegas has their over-under at 53 and a half games. Last season, again, 51 wins. So they're expecting 2.5 more wins for this season. What's your take on that one?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I like the Boston Celtics players, and they really proved last year that the duo between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum will work. But I don't know, this season just feels snake bit because of first the Danilo Gallinari injury, and then of course the drama with the coach. So I'm gonna go under. Despite all the talent, they're young and they're getting better, but I just feel like the team is going to take a step back this season.
We're on the same page here. I like what they have. If they were fully available, I think that there are things that are not having a center is going to be a huge problem. And Al Horford's not younger, and he, essentially got that year off in OKC to do what he did last season, which was play great. But asking him, they really don't have a backup center at this point. And you have teams like the Bucks, like the Sixers, like the Heat, who are going to come out guns blazing. The Heat, we'll see if they stay interested. But, you've got teams that are really vying for that number one seed. So I find it hard that they're going to eclipse the number last year, and possibly there might be a little hangover, like you said, the drama, all those things. Let's move on to the Sixers, who, again, finished with 51 wins last year. Great record. Harden kind of disappeared as he does in the playoffs. And, look, are they a good team? Absolutely. Do I think they could capture the number one seed? I do. They've got them at 50 and a half wins. Vegas does. What's your take?
Yeah, I'll go over. That's the Philadelphia 76ers last year, they pick up James Harden middle to late in the season. and they've had a full offseason now to gel, and he looks like he's in really great shape. I think he's getting a little bit more serious now as he's getting older. Of course, Joel Embiid's still in the prime of his career. I really like the 76ers. I'm going over.
Yeah, same. They have a very legitimate chance to capture the number 1 seed, and I think the one of the additions. Obviously, you just like to see the growth of the younger guys and that stuff, but I think Harden being in shape and PJ Tucker. I mean, that dude is a dude. He is someone who's going to hold them accountable. He's going to bring toughness to that team. I'm fully in agreement. I think we're going over there as well. Next, we're looking at the Toronto Raptors, finished with 48 wins last season. And again, a really weird season for them, right? Injuries and COVID and all these different things that they really, I thought, did well given the circumstances. They're at 45.5 wins this year. Where do you think they fall this season?
Yeah, that seems very low coming off a 48 win season last year. I'm kind of surprised by that. I'm not super high on the Raptors. I don't think they're going to make much noise in the playoffs, but I'll still go over was it 45 or 45 and
45 and a half, yeah.
Yeah, I'll still go over.
Yeah, they're one of those teams, when I start to look around the NBA and you start to look at kind of patterns of how teams are built, and they're a different type of a model, right? Like 6'8", 6'9" across the board, switch everything. And they do play great defense, and they've got a great coach and Nurse. I think they're going to do some damage this year and eclipse that number as well. What's their kind of, when you face Giannis and you face Lopez and you face a big lineup like that, or you face a Embiid, and how are they going to really match up? That's why I'm in agreement. I think they'll do well in the regular season. I don't know that they're built for a playoff team, and I think that half-court offense is a big question mark for me going into this season. I like them. I think they'll do better than Vegas thinks, but I just playoff-wise, I'm not sure. And speaking of which, a team that this is one of the teams of we'll see what happens based on how Kyrie Irving acts and how his head is. But the Brooklyn Nets, 44 wins last season, and this year they're projected 50.5. What you take?
Yeah, I'll go under on this one just because despite all the talent, they're just perpetual underachievers. And I couldn't think of a group of more unlikable players assembled in any professional sports team. So hats off to Brooklyn for putting together like the worst group of players ever. Personality wise, I'm sure they're great dudes off the court. But we'll see if how many games Kyrie plays. We'll see if Ben Simmons can overcome the jump shot. And so I'll take the under.
Yeah, so far we're in agreement on it. I just don't. There are teams and there are cultures that you create, and it's really based on stability and leadership. And with KD asking for the coach to be fired or he wouldn't come, I mean, that's just it's toxic. It's absolutely toxic. There is a team that's right across the way from Brooklyn in Manhattan, the Knicks. They underachieved last year. I think having Point Randall was a huge problem, but bringing in Brunson was a great idea. And they were projected at only 38.5 wins this year, even though they won 37 last year. What's your take on the Knicks?
I'm not super high on the Knicks, but I felt like everything that could go wrong did go wrong for them last year. So I feel like that's too low. I'm going to take the over on it just slightly. And the Eastern Conference has gotten better, so they probably still, say they win 38, 39 games. That still may not even be good enough to get into the play-in tournament, but I expect a little bit more on the Knicks this season.
Yeah, I agree. Tim's always, again, last year was a bad roster, and they kind of did that for a reason. I think they were kind of hoping to sign free agents. They got Brunson, but I got to see them demolish my Pistons in the preseason. And granted, it's preseason, but Tibbs had them ready to play. They came out in a preseason game like it was a freaking game 7 of the finals. And they were flying around the court. They were jumping passing lanes. They were playing super aggressive. And I think that's one of those teams I think they'll grit out those extra few wins to hit the over. They have that, if they have that kind of blue collar mindset and they're playing good defense, even if they do struggle offensively, that's going to make up for, I think, some of those road games or back-to-backs or whatever. I like the over there as well. I think we should move on to the Central now, and it's hard to not think about what could have been with the Milwaukee Bucks last season, a 51-win team. They're projected at 52.5 wins this season. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm high on the Bucks. Earlier this morning I wrote an article where I predicted them to win the championship.
Yep.
However, they don't take the regular season super seriously. They're an older group. They're veterans. They've been there and they've done that. They seem to be okay with kind of coasting through the regular season. So I'm going to say under, but again, I still remain high on the Bucks.
By the way, if you want to read Pat's stuff, I forgot to mention this. Go to si.com/NBA/Hawks, and you can check out that article that he just mentioned. I think that Giannis, they got time off, which they didn't have the season before. Lopez's back is a concern for me. I'm only 6'6". I'm not a 7-footer, but back problems don't just go away, and so it's something you have to manage and deal with. And if they see an extended period of time with him out of the lineup, with Giannis playing the 5, will he have gas at the end of the season, enough gas in the tank to really get him over that finish line, to play against a tough Philly team, to play against the Miami Heat? I still like their team. I think they're poised to make a move. I think they could still make that move. I mean, I don't know if Detroit would send, when they got Bogdanovich and they sent him, they got him from the Jazz. I don't know they'd send Boy on there, but he definitely would be someone that would help that team with scoring, with that, if Middleton does end up limiting minutes, he could help them not just, during the stretch run, but in the playoffs as well. So pending any moves, I'm still not 100% sold they're going to hit that over, just like you said, just because they do rest and they will have to take time off. I mean, that's just the reality with an older team. So next up are the Bulls. They had 46 wins last year. We don't know if, when, or ever Lonzo's going to be back. He has a knee problem, which is not something that you want when you are a guard, obviously, and your entire game is predicated on athleticism and being that kind of that assist guy who can blow by someone and make that pass. So 41.5 is the number Vegas has them at this year. That's about where they were. They're 46, so even Vegas is down on them. 4.5 wins. Where do you think they're going to land?
Yeah, the Bulls went out super sad last year. First Alex Caruso, I believe he broke his wrist. And then Lonzo Ball had the ongoing injury issues. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to take the over, but not by much. And again, it's probably going to be a worse season for the Bulls than it was last year, just because of the Lonzo Ball issue. And, I don't know how many more years of prime DeMar DeRozan we're going to get. So I'll take the over, just because I feel like that's like shockingly low, the number. And again, they're a team like the Knicks that still is going to be a team that struggles to get into the play-in tournament.
Yeah, the East is so loaded that I really was surprised. It was kind of fun to see them make the move they did, to bring in Vooch and to really bring in DeMar and make that push, but it's not enough. And at some point during this season, are they going to say, let's just blow it up and start over again? Because, they've got Zach and that's great, but they really don't have a lot of flexibility. And we'll see. I think the ball injury is a big deal. Not having, sure, they brought in a point guard. So yes, they kind of maybe have a stopgap and we'll see. I mean, older point guards in 2022 or 2023, that's not, to me, ideal. How many minutes are you really going to get? So to me, it's I don't know, Dragic, I like him, but a 36-year-old, let's be honest. If Jaden Ivey or Cade Cunningham gets switched on to him, he's done. So
Dragic, I thought he was washed during the 2020 NBA Finals when he played for the Heat against the Lakers. I thought his career was done then, and we're a few years past that point now.
Yep, I agree, and and Kobe White's really not a point guard, so they're going to have some questions. I'm sure we'll see a lot of Zach LaVine facilitating, but I agree with you. I think they'll do better than 41.5. But they're one of those teams, to me, like I said, if you get to a point in the season where you're like, this ain't working, they start to just dump, if they don't start well, I think they're one of those teams that just starts to fire sale at some point.
Yeah.
The next are the Cavs. Again, a team that started the year like the Bulls. At one point, they were in first place, right? And just injuries kind of hit them. And then they go out and they pick up Donovan Mitchell, and which I thought was a good pickup for them, even though his defense is suspect. The rest of the team is not. So what's your take on them? We've got them coming in at 47.5 wins this season. Last season, they were at 44.
Yeah, I think that they will improve dramatically this season. I thought they were great last year until the injury bug jumped up and bit them at the worst possible time. And they just sunk in the standings and fell into the play-in tournament. And just everything that could go wrong did go wrong. But, they committed. They went all in on Donovan Mitchell this summer. I think he's going to really thrive in Cleveland. So I'll take the over. I'm believing in the Cavs this year.
Yeah, it's crazy when you look at the top of the East, especially. I mean, who do they overtake, right? You've got, between Philly and Milwaukee, and there's a lot of good teams in the East. Boston, that who are they going to overtake? And I think they're going to make it into the top 6. I don't know where, but I think provided they don't have another injury issue, I think they're going to make top 6, and I like the over there. Yeah. The next team is the Indiana Pacers. They had 25 wins last season. They are projected to do worse at 23.5 this season. Where do you think they land?
I think they are going to try to tank for Wemby, and so I'm going to take the under. I feel like a lot of teams are going to be competing for that top draft pick, and the Pacers will be one of them.
Yeah, they finally, after decades of being in kind of the middle, like my Pistons. Yeah, I think they finally are biting the bullet and just saying, "Look, we need to blow this up," and they're going to be trading as well. I think that the one that I've been hearing, the trade that I've been hearing, is the Lakers getting the 2 first-round picks from the Lakers.
Yeah,
if that happens, because that'd be ideal for Indiana, because the Lakers are not going to be good forever, obviously, with the aging LeBron and their cap issues and stuff. But they're a team they're not a league pass team for me. Like, even when they play my Pistons, I might be like, what else is on?
Seriously.
They don't have a lot that gets me excited. And then finally in the Central are my Detroit Pistons. Last year, only 23 wins. This year, Vegas is high on them at 29.5. So we lost veterans. We traded away guys. We did get Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel, but no one's healthy at this point. And Marvin Bagley's going to be out to start the season. 29.5 for me. What do you think about it?
I mean, you would know better than I would. I was impressed because, I am so locked in on the Hawks that I really only watched the Pistons when they beat the Hawks twice in the span of about 2 weeks last spring. And I was really impressed with Cade Cunningham and the young team. So you would know better. I mean, if they're planning on tanking, then I get that. But I think that they've got the talent to do better if that is their goal. But you would know better, like, what their draft plans are.
Yeah, I think that we have really good young talent, but like young. I mean, Duran's 18. Like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we're a little ways off. I think what everyone's kind of saying is this is the season before the season kind of a thing. So, and again, if any kind of injury, whether it's Cade or it's Bay or we just don't have the depth to really compete with that second tier, in my opinion, let alone the first tier. I loved how we closed out last season. I thought that was a great, it was hope. Hell, I'm flying back to Detroit to catch the home opener and the Hawks game next week. So, it got me excited enough to want to see these young guys play. But even the first 10 games of this season could start horrific for them. I mean, they could start off 0-10, 1-9. They do have some winnable games in there: Washington, Indiana, Orlando. But even Orlando's good. I mean, so it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm taking the under on the 29.5. As I'm a diehard, but I just am not that optimistic for this year at least.
I feel you.
Heading in the Southeast, first place in the Eastern Conference last year with 53 wins with the Miami Heat. The Heat are projected to go down 5 wins to 48.5 this season. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're going down as well. Last year, they played really well, but they didn't really improve this offseason. They didn't make many moves. I don't know if they were just in a holding pattern waiting on Durant or what happened. All that happened was they lost PJ Tucker. So I expect the Heat to take a step back this year. So I'll take the under.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. The Duncan Robinson thing is just perplexing, to say the least. To have a guy that was playing well for you, now you came and put him in the game in the playoffs. I mean, I think once that, the NBA is all about matchups, and once someone sniffs out your weakness, they don't go away from it. So it's gonna be. I don't think they're gonna finish first. I think they are one of those teams that, as long as Jimmy is bought in, they're gonna play hard every night. But they lost a little bit of toughness with PJ, and then like you said, no real additions. I'm going under as well.
All right.
Next with 43 wins last season, making the 8th seed, are your Atlanta Hawks. So this is where it's time to shine, because we are looking at a team that added, a team that got rid of, and a team that is projected at 45.5 wins. So 2.5 wins better than what they did last season. What do you think?
Yeah, very productive off season. They sacrificed some outside shooting to become more defensive minded, more versatile at offense. I'm pounding the over on this one. I'm not just saying that because I'm an Atlanta homer. I really think, like, if I were a betting man, I would absolutely take the over on this one. I feel like the Hawks are being overlooked.
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see, because when there's a coaching change, when your best player and your coach don't see eye to eye, and then you bring in Nate McMillan, and the team plays well, and Trey takes that proverbial next step and goes into the garden and does what he does, and they kind of had a little bit of a letdown last year, but like you said, I think it's addition by subtraction, but also like they got better, and so I'm interested to see on defense in particular, giving up 112 points a game last season. Can they do better than that? Because if they can, the scoring's going to be there. There's no question about that.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the over as well. The team that came in 10th place last year in the East, the Charlotte Hornets, are already imploding. They had 43 wins last year. They're projected to have 10 less at 33.5 this year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge drop off. And you've got a superstar or budding superstar who's unhappy. So what do you think the season looks like for Charlotte?
Yeah, I think Charlotte's going to be one of those teams that takes a step back, but I don't think they're going to take that much of a step back. Like you said, budding superstar in the middle of the ball, and I just don't think they're going to lose that many games. So I'm gonna take the over, but again, that could leave them on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. They've got some pieces that they could deal. They've got Rozier, they've got Oubre, they've got Hayward's contract. I'm sure they'd love to unload that to a losing team, maybe even going back to Utah to get some picks or whatever. But they are a team that just I'm not high. Like I'm not really looking forward to watching them play, not just because they have like former Piston Mason Plumlee or whatever, but they're a mess. I mean, they are an absolute mess of a team. They bring back the coach that they fired. There's just so many. It's a weird setup. I don't know what direction they're going, and it's like they're almost blowing it up again, but before they even got a chance to do anything. I'm interested. I do think they will be, just for the sake of the fact that they do have some talent still on the roster. And there are some really bad teams who are going to tank. I think I would probably take the over on that one as well. Not that I think that they're going to be great, but I think they do have enough talent to beat some of these really awful teams. Teams like the Pacers, the teams in the Western Conference that are just obviously bad, your Spurs, et cetera. They're going to pick up wins along the way and then surprise a few teams. So that wouldn't shock me. Last season's Washington Wizards finished the season with 35 wins, which I thought was obviously low. They had issues too, but they're projected at 35.5. So really about the same. Vegas thinks they're about the same team as last year. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll take the over just because last year they were looking like a lock for the postseason until Bradley Beal got injured. So, assuming that they're healthy, it seems just natural that they will exceed last year's mark.
Yeah, I think they have the talent to, when they play against some of these younger teams that have talent, I think that their experience is what's going to take them over the hump. And a healthy Porzingis and Kuzma seems to get better every year. Even if it's incrementally, he's getting better. He's not peaked yet. So I like the Wizards over as well. Last but not least, to close out the East, we have the Orlando Magic, 22 wins last year. Vegas likes them this year at 26.5 wins. What do you think?
I'll take the under. Like you said with the Pistons, they're a year away from the year, and they're a super young team. So I don't expect them to really try to compete too much this year. They're still developing, and they probably would not mind being in the sweepstakes for a top draft pick.
Yeah, I agree. I like their pieces.
Yeah.
They really don't have that point guard. And so that's going to really, I mean, Suggs has, struggled. I mean, he's not been what everyone thought he would be. And so it's kind of hard to win in the league without a floor general. That asked the Knicks last year how difficult it is to close out a game when you have no one actually running your offense. So I agree. I think they and the Pistons are going to be, if both teams are competitive, I could see those teams, one of those two teams maybe trying to jockey for the play-in. But that to me is even a stretch. As a fan of the Pistons, I think it's still a stretch. So let's hop over to the West, and we're going to start in the Northwest, and we're going to start with the Utah Jazz, who had 49 wins last year. And obviously we know they are not the same team they were last year after trading away their star players. Vegas has them at 24.5 wins.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I guess I'll take the under on that one just because they're not competing this year. They're trying to follow the Oklahoma City Thunder blueprint and stockpile draft picks. So I think it's safe to say we can skip watching Jazz games this season.
Yeah, they are just. I mean, the new uniforms pretty much match where I think their team.
Yeah,
just like G League stuff.
Yeah.
The Denver Nuggets last season were at 48 wins, and again, a Denver Nuggets team that was not at full strength. Right, they had key players out, and now they're at 50.5 wins. Where do you think they'll land? Michael Porter Jr. coming back, a healthy Murray, 50.5 seems low to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll take the over on that one. Assuming that they're healthy, I think that they could be a top 2, top 3 seed team in the Western Conference. But then again, like you said, Jamal Murray, MPJ, we don't know. I mean, hopefully they're healthy. If so, with Jokic, they're going to be great. So I'll take the over and I'll be optimistic.
Yeah, and I love the additions that they made. KCP is underrated. Former Detroit legend KCP. He's underrated as a guard, a good defender. I just like the move that Bruce Brown, another former Piston legend, bring him in to be a wing defender and just be that guy that, like we saw in Brooklyn last year. He's going to stand in the corner and wait for his three. And if it's not there, he's cutting the basket. And I really like the fact that, he's playing with Jokic, is going to get those passes and get those cuts and make the defense work and think. So I like the additions they made. I think they're a top 3 team as well. The Timberwolves last season, they 46 wins. And this season they're being projected to win 49.5 after adding Gobert. Play-in tournament eligible and celebratory play-in win. What do you think they're going to be with the addition of Gobert? What do you think they're at? Over under 48.5.
Yeah, I think I'll take the over. I don't know if that's going to equate to playoff success, but again, I think they'll be a solid regular season team. But again, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. But yeah, they'll hit that mark in the regular season.
Yeah, I like Edwards really showed growth last season, and so if he continues on that trajectory, I like it as well. The 4th place team in the Northwest last year was the Portland Trailblazers. They had 27 wins, so not a ton. And with the additions they made, they're projected at 39.5 this season. Where do you think they'll land?
That sounds about right. Assuming Damian Lillard will be healthy this year. He missed so much time last year. I believe it was with some sort of core muscle injury. And I think if Dame's healthy, then yeah, I think that they can hit that mark. And I'm going to be optimistic. I still think we have prime Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I like some of the additions they made. Former Piston Jeremy Grant, Simons bringing him back, and I like the things that they did. But they're another one of those teams to me that's a little weird, right? It's an odd roster makeup. So I think they're obviously way better than they were last year. And some of the lineups they rolled out last season were kind of laughable. But guys who just should not be in the league, but they're playing. So I think that number is not reflective of who they really are. And I'm interested to see how Chauncey does as a coach in year 2. This is the first time he's actually had Dame available, and they gave them some more weapons. So I'm interested to see how they play. The West is loaded, but you still have teams like the Thunder and teams like the Rockets and the Spurs to beat up on. So as well as some of the East. So I think they'll get that number. Oklahoma City last season, 24 wins. This year, one less at 23.5 wins. I don't know what they're doing with Shea, but where do you think they're going to land this season?
Oh man, you know they're going to shamelessly tank.
Yeah.
As soon as Chet got injured, we knew what time it was. So yeah, I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I agree. There's Oklahoma City is one of those teams that when I was younger and my kids were younger, you look at the rosters and you look at the teams where the Pistons might play, and you'd be like, I bet I can get tickets there for really cheap.
Yeah.
That's one of those teams.
I love those. Well, I love those sort of teams though. As a fan, like that's awesome. You're like, hey, I'm going to be able to get down in the 100 section.
Yeah. We got almost courtside for $75 a ticket. Awesome. Like,
yeah, exactly. Those teams.
So we're looking now at the Pacific Division. The Phoenix Suns, they were the number 1 seed overall with 64 wins. They got absolutely dismantled against Luka and the Mavericks in the playoffs. Some off-season drama, not just with the owner, but with the coach and with Ayton. And 64 wins last year. They are projected at 52.5 this year. What's your take?
Yeah, I think last year, obviously the wheels fell off, and then they did not get off to a great start this season with the 36ers that beat them in the preseason, and then Jay Crowder's wanting out. Unless they can really pull off an excellent Jay Crowder trade, the Suns seem like a team that's primed to take a few steps back. So I'll take the under.
Yeah, I think that what scares me about that team, and in a bad way, if I'm them, is that Alvarado just showed the league how to take Chris Paul out of a game. Just go at him.
Yeah,
that's the
next point.
Right, and he's a year older.
Yeah.
It's too dysfunctional there for me to think they're going to get back to the number 1 seed. I think they're still a good team, but I don't think the West is way too competitive for them to be a 64-win team again. So,
yeah, absolutely.
The NBA champion Golden State Warriors last season, 53 wins. Vegas has them this season at 51.5. So actually losing 2 more games. So is this just a question of staying engaged, or why do you think the 2 less?
Yeah, I don't know why that is. Obviously, I'm going to take the over on this one. I think Klay Thompson will be better this season. Last year, he was still pretty rusty and still a valuable player. Jordan Poole's going to be better. Steph is still in his prime. And this one seems like an obvious over to me.
Yeah, and the young guys, I agree. I can't see them taking a step back, even coming off of a championship and what have you. They're deep. They're deep and they're good. So even if you do give Klay a night off or even Steph a night off, they still have talent. It's not like they're a bad team. So I agree. I like that over. The Clippers, 42 wins last year. Again, not really the true Clippers that we were expecting because of Kawhi not playing and injuries, but 52.5 is where Vegas has them at this year. So over 10 wins from last year.
That's a big jump. I think obviously they're going to be improved with assuming Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are healthy. That's a huge jump, though. I'm gonna be a contrarian and take the under on this one. I think they'll improve, but that's a big jump.
Yeah, they're one of those teams to me that they have so much talent at the guard and even the forward position. But Zubac as your center, I'm not sold. I'm just not sold that he is, the guy that's going to take him there. And I could just imagine, Zubac against Embiid, Zubac against Brook Lopez, against any of these big, really true centers. I just don't think he has it. And I think he's a nice player. Don't get me wrong, but he's definitely not on that All-Star or even sniffing the All-Star level caliber of what I think you need to win a championship, or even just to be an excellent role player, right? Like not today's iteration of him, but even the JaVale McGee's of the world that just pop in there and all they do is get boards and block shots, right? He's not that either. So I'm not super high on that piece of it, but I do think they will obviously win more than 42 games in a tough Western Conference, provided they're healthy. I think they have a chance at the over, but I would take the under as well.
Sure.
And everyone's favorite team, the Los Angeles Lakers. Last year, 33 wins. This year projected at 45 and a half. So another big jump.
Yeah, no, I'm not buying this one. And I'm a Lakers fan. It's just until they do something about Russell Westbrook, uh, until they get off his contract, then no, they're not going to make that kind of jump this year. I think Vegas knows there are a lot of Lakers fans out there, lots of optimistic fans out there, and every single year they cash in on that. So I'm hammering the under on this one.
Yeah, I agree. They lost prize trade bait Taylor Horton Tucker, and
Yeah, I didn't even understand that trade. That didn't even make sense.
yeah, they just, and then they extend Pelinka after this mess. None of it makes sense to me. The one hope that they have is that Anthony Davis can actually play and stays available, because I think when they do have a full roster, they are competitive. It's not they're a bad team, but the depth just isn't there to compete with the rest of the West.
For sure.
Sacramento Kings, 30 wins last year. They're an intriguing team. 30 wins, shook up the roster. They're projected at only 33 and a half this season. What do you think?
Yeah, they did shake up the roster. They added my boy Kevin Herter after trading with the Atlanta Hawks. I think the Kings will do better. I think they could be a sneaky play-in tournament team.
Yeah,
I'll take the over.
I agree. And I still, Kayvon is still one of my favorite all-time nicknames for a player. It's fantastic. That I think they're one of those teams that I'm interested to see how they play, because Sabonis is a kind of not a black hole necessarily, but when the ball goes into him, he's going to the hoop. You know what he's going to do, and to see how that contrasts with the speed of Fox and how they could play fast. So I'm interested to see how that comes together. I feel like maybe, hopefully, for Kings fans' sakes at least, they turned a corner and they're starting to maybe sniff a playoff win. but yeah, they're another team that's. They're interesting in the moves they made. Now I want to see it on the floor.
Sure.
Memphis Grizzlies finished in the second seed last year in the West. They had 56 wins last season, and right now they're projected at 48 and a half wins, so taking a step back. That's quite a big step back, actually. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, that one sounds right. I would have to agree. I'm going to take the under. I don't see them moving in the right direction.
Yeah, you think they kind of overachieved, and there's a couple of teams like that, right? They overachieved, like like the Hawks did a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
They really did well, and then last season they kind of came back to earth, but now they've made the adjustment. I think that's kind of where the Grizzlies are at too. They're going to have to make adjustments if they want to, beat that over.
Yeah. I mean, John Morant's electrifying, and they're a good team, great coach, but I feel like last year was, maybe a bit of an outlier.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Mavericks, fourth place last year, 52 wins. Luka Magic, and they're projected at 48 and a half this year. So another lower win total. Again, they lost Brunson, which sure, I get it. Added Christian Wood. I like that. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'll take the over. I'm surprised that they have the Mavericks moving backwards, to be honest.
Yeah, there's something to be said for, like I said, for Brunson not being there, but they do have. It's not like they have a bad roster. They still have Dinwiddie. They still have Hardaway Jr. who's back, and Christian Wood is a scorer, like it or not. So they say he's never done on a winning team, but is that his fault? I mean, he's gone from the worst team in the league to even worse teams in the league. So I don't really put a lot of that on him. And I think he's a candidate for Sixth Man of the Year, quite frankly. So I think it'll be interesting to see. And Luka's must watch anyway. So I'm taking the over as well.
Mm-hmm.
The third place team in the Southwest, they finished 8th and got into the play-in with 36 wins. They rejuvenated New Orleans Pelicans, who now have Zion back, which is, I think, understated for a lot of these numbers. They're projected at 44 and a half wins.
Yeah, that's a big jump, and I still am willing to take the over just because, like you said, Zion's back. He looks to be in tremendous shape. Brandon Ingram is in the reaching new heights really with where he's at in his career. Jose Alvarado, I'm totally in on the Pelicans.
Yeah, I love their roster. I love they've got so many, whether it's Dyson Daniels, Devontae Graham, Herb Jones, Nance. I mean, they have a really good run. They're deep and they're good and they're young. I like them a lot. So I like the over on that too. The Spurs last year, 34 wins. We know they're in tank mode, projected at 22 and a half this season.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that sounds right. I guess 22.5, that would be probably like one of the three worst records in the league. That sounds right. So I guess I'll take, if not a push, I mean, I'll try to say the under because even Popovich at Media Day made it clear like this team isn't going anywhere. So they are shooting for one of the best draft picks. So yeah, I'll take the under.
Yeah, and when you start to do the math, right, you look at the Pacers, the Pistons, the
Yeah.
Magic, the Hornets, the Thunder, the Rockets. I don't see how they get close to that number. I just can't. I can't do the math. Even if they split with all those teams, how do they get to that many wins? I'm taking the under as well, which is hopefully it pays off for them because I love Pop, love the Spurs. Just this is going to be brutal. And last but not least, the Houston Rockets last season 20 wins. This season 23.5 wins. So not a terribly huge jump, but still giving them more credit for having some growth this season.
Yeah, I think they will hit that mark, maybe improve a little bit upon it. They are again, they're a few years away from being a few years away, but I don't, well, it's they got Kevin Porter Jr.
Yep.
and Steven Silas is a good coach. So yeah, I mean, I'll be optimistic. I'll say over.
Yeah, they're going to be interesting, and not just because they have Boban, right? Because he's but it'll be interesting team to watch to see how does Jalen Green take that next step, the proverbial next step coming into his next season, and I think they're going to be a well coached team. I don't know how competitive they're going to be, and they're like you mentioned, they're going to be one of the teams that's going to be in the running to bottom out as well. So.
Yeah,
So 23.5, I mean, it's a brutal season to,
that is. That's terrible. That's a painful season.
yeah, that's not must watch basketball.
Yeah.
So overall, I just think the West is going to be super tough, and so are the East. And the teams that are at the top, it's really going to be a matter of how much do they load manage and really jockey for position to try to get home court. And I could see a scenario where towards, yes, the Pistons played great towards the end of last season. How many of those teams were trying and we're running out their full lineups and all those things? So I can see a similar scenario happening. And all I hope is that by the end of once we come around to late March and April basketball, that we're not watching like glorified G League teams again. That's my only ask because it's just not watchable basketball. It's like you get a little bit of a hiatus before the playoffs start because it's just so bad. So, well, that was our wrap up for the entire NBA over under in 45 minutes. I can't believe we did it. Pat.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Pat, thank you for coming on. And again, if you're not following Pat on Twitter, go find him there. He's Pat_Benson_ Jr. JR. And again, if you want to read his stuff, you're going to go to si.com, /NBA/Hawks. And Pat, again, have a great season for your Hawks. I'll check in with you again as the season goes on.
I can't wait, David. Thanks again for having me, and we'll be talking on Twitter.
All right. See you there. Thank you for listening to the David Binkowski podcast. If you like this episode, please make sure you give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify.